Obstacles to Practice by Jamgon Kongtrul Rinpoche III. 1. Pride. We conceal within ourselves a mountain of faults, yet we put down others and broadcast their shortcomings, though they be minute as a sesame seed. Though we have not the slightest good qualities, we boast saying how great we are. We have the label of Dharma practitioners, but practice only non-Dharma. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we loose our pride and self-centeredness. Everyone is selfish, thinks they have outstanding qualities, and are superior to others only on account of their attachment to themselves. One thinks others are inferior only to confirm one's sense of self-importance. One is hardly critical with oneself and thinks one is the best. Everyone has faults that are as huge as a mountain. One clearly sees slightest faults that others do have and criticizes them. Actually, everybody has good and bad sides, but one sees the more evident faults in others, which is only an excuse. One fails to recognize one's own errors. Should someone point to them, one becomes furious because of one's sense of self-importance. Others have many qualities one refuses to acknowledge for one reason only: pride. One fears to appear inferior in comparison, inferior in one's own eyes, inferior in one's selfishness. Seeking and seeing faults in others is a sly way of reifying oneself. Recognizing one's own faults is the mark of a genuine Dharma practitioner. Beginners may be proud to have gone on board the ship, leading to mental refinement, falsely assume to have reached the goal, and think they have attained qualities of worth that help others. Yet, genuine help depends upon qualities of realization, which can never arise from pride and dishonesty. Pride and arrogance mislead one to believe one is a good practitioner, whereas one is only boasting. As long as one is not honest with oneself and ignores one's own shortcomings, one is not a true follower of the Buddha Dharma. One remains beset by the habit of judging others, which never complies with Lord Buddha's teachings, but is, in truth, mundane and points to a lack of compassion. Such a misled individual is only arrogant and proud, obstacles that give rise to a long chain of disturbing emotions: ignorance, desire, anger, miserliness, jealousy, and so forth. Should one's practice remain worldly, true help for oneself and others is impossible. If one relinquishes one's arrogance and pride, then genuine qualities manifest from within, the sole purpose of eliminating the misleading obsession of the self-cherishing attitude. If one fails to eliminate self-cherishing, pride only increases, the reason why we pray to our Lama to pacify our never-ending selfishness. 2. Ego fixation. We conceal within the demon of ego clinging that always brings us to ruin. All of our thoughts cause kleshas to increase. All of our actions have non-virtuous results. We have not even turned towards the path of liberation. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that grasping onto a self be uprooted. Since one believes in and is fixated upon a self, one falsely concludes one will live forever. One's thoughts and intentions then only fan other disturbing kleshas, emotions, and one's activities remain unwholesome. Ego fixation hinders one from even approaching the path to liberation. Therefore, we pray to our Lama to quickly look upon us and grant his blessings so that we cut through and thoroughly eradicate our mistaken belief in a self. During all previous lives, one has been deluded and confused. Consequently, one isn't able to realize that the self is in truth non-existent. One intensifies one's notions of a self as a permanently existing entity and is thus convinced that one is very important. One believes to know what is good for oneself, but one's mind is only distracted. All thoughts one has arise from one's negative emotions, and so one only causes more misery for oneself and others. Even though one's intentions are good, one's activities are harmful. Due to the force of karma, one only causes more pain. Ego clinging does not only hinder but actually impedes individuals from even thinking about wanting to find a reliable path to freedom from suffering. Since ego fixation is so harmful, we ask our Lama for his compassionate blessings so that we completely and perfectly dissever clinging to a self. 3. Impatience. A little praise makes us happy, a little blame makes us sad. With a few harsh words, we loose the armor of our patience. Even if we see those who are destitute, no compassion arises. When there is an opportunity to be generous, we are tied in knots by greed. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that our mind be one with the Dharma. Should one not be able to integrate the Buddha Dharma in one's mind, one would not be able to lead a meaningful life. One is very pleased when praised and becomes depressed and frustrated when someone is critical, because one thinks others don't see one as the person one wishes to be. Patience is repeatedly discussed in the teachings, and one thinks one has perfected it, only to respond with anger when criticized slightly. Goodness and badness do not depend upon others' opinions, but only upon one's own ability to establish values of worth in one's life. As long as one is self-centered, one cannot really be good. Anything done with self-centeredness destroys any goodness one may have been able to develop. Therefore, one needs to develop genuine qualities and not rely upon opinions others may have. This verse reminds us that there is no quality as beneficial and important as patience, and that there is no fault as detrimental as anger. If one cannot develop true patience, unpleasant situations cause one to lose the patience one has been able to develop with so much energy and exertion. Buddhism also stresses the importance of generating and developing compassion. But should one be indifferent towards somebody who is suffering in front of one's very eyes, then it's another sign that one isn't really practicing the Dharma. It is necessary to develop the pure motivation and to want to actually lead others to enlightenment, but the wish must be put into practice in that one automatically and naturally has empathy for others in all situations and at all times, without any hesitations. The above also applies to generosity. The reason this topic is emphasized again and again in the teachings and needs to be understood and cultivated. If one does not help the needy, then one has failed to truly integrate the Dharma in one's life. The qualities of patience, compassion, and generosity are said to be important in the teachings, but one merely renders lip service as long as one does not integrate the virtuous qualities one aspires to perfect and ignores opportunities to put them into practice in daily life. Such behavior is of no benefit to anyone. Words are not enough. The reason we ask our Lama to bless us so that our mind becomes one with the Dharma in all walks of life. 4. Attachment. We think samsara is worthwhile when it is not. We give up our higher vision for the sake of food and clothes. Although we have all that is needed, we constantly want more. Our minds are deceived by unreal, illusory phenomena. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we let go of attachment to this life. In this verse, Jamgon Kongtrul Lodrö Thaye shows that samsara has no value or meaning. I have explained this topic and want everyone to know that one only thinks and merely assumes that samsara is meaningful. As it is, one spends a great deal of energy buying new clothes and getting better things. As a result, one ignores more far-reaching aims. One has everything one needs in order to enjoy a very reasonable standard of living as it is, but continually seeks more and remains bewildered because one believes samsara is real. It is in truth only an illusion. We heard that conditioned existence irremissibly entails suffering and presents no values of worth, and we know that we need to develop genuine renunciation. But one always wants more. If one has 100, one wants 1,000. If one has 1,000, one struggles to get 1,000,000. One's wishes multiply while one ventures through life and in the futile attempt to satisfy hopeless aims, one incessantly experiences sadness. In one's endeavor to acquire more and more fortune and fame, one ignores the most meaningful objective, which is Buddhahood, a state free of suffering. One needs to turn one's mind towards a meaningful goal, which is the Buddha Dharma. Practice gradually enables one to experience perfect and lasting happiness. We ask our Lama to bless us so that we do not remain beset by the wish to own more and more things. 5. Non-virtuous activities. Not able to endure the merest physical or mental pain, with blind courage, we do not hesitate to fall into lower realms. Although we see directly the unfailing law of cause and effect, we do not act virtuously, but increase our non-virtuous activity. Lama, think of us. Behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we come to trust completely in the laws of karma. When one suffers and experiences a slight headache, one complains. Should one be honest, though, one would realize that it is slight in comparison to the pain sentient beings in the lower realms are doomed to endure until their karma is exhausted. Every individual accumulates causes and conditions through their own activities of body, speech, and mind, which bring on birth in a respective realm and environment. The truth of the law of karma is not very stable in one's mind. Sometimes one remembers the infallible law of cause and effect, and then one engages in virtuous activities, but one usually ignores, forgets, and does not even care about one's actions. If one truly realizes that non-virtuous actions lead to suffering, and that virtuous actions definitely lead to happiness, one lives according to the law of karma. Simply looking at one's present situation, one wins confidence in the active process of karma. There are so many living beings. Even the different individuals one is acquainted with experience various types of physical and mental anguish and pain. Some people seem to encounter problems throughout their entire life, while others never have accidents, hardly ever get sick, and the like. Every living being has personal karma and consequently experiences the ripening of causes he himself has created. All living beings are the same, though, in that they wish to experience happiness and not experience pain. Some are successful at achieving this, and others are not, which is only the working of karma. If one does not understand the infallible law of cause and effect, one leads one's life in bewilderment. Should one appreciate the law of karma, one would abandon non-virtuous actions and only do good. It is but certainty of karma that causes one to turn one's mind away from non-virtuous actions. 6. Laziness. We hate our enemies and cling to friends. Lost in the darkness of ignorance, we do not know what to accept or reject. When practicing Dharma, we fall into dullness, drowsiness, and sleep. When not practicing Dharma, we are clever and our senses are clear. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we overcome our enemy, the kleshas. One's mind is overwhelmed while discriminating between friends and enemies, which arises from attachment and aversion, the principal afflictions. One is ignorant as to what is really good or bad, right or wrong, what needs to be done, and what needs to be abandoned. Even when one does good, one is driven by the power of negative habits and becomes discouraged, tired, and sleepy, quite evident during intensive Dharma practice, such as in a retreat. It's very important to know what actually needs to be adopted and what must be given up in order to overcome the obstacles that all the disturbing emotions bring on. It is on account of one's own delusions that obstacles arise during practice. We pray to our Lama to bless us so that we do not act against the Dharma. 7. Anger. From the outside, we appear to be genuine Dharma practitioners. On the inside, our minds have not blended with the Dharma. We conceal our kleshas inside like a poisonous snake, yet when difficult situations arise, the hidden faults of a poor practitioner come to light. Lama, think of us. Behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we ourselves are able to tame our mind. Some people appear to be really involved with the Buddha Dharma, since they behave properly, but their thoughts contradict their actions if they have failed to tame their own mind. They have not been able to practice the Dharma with the pure intention of training their own mind, the only purpose of the teachings. Their minds are controlled by disturbing emotions. They only think of themselves and remain inconsiderate of others. Jamgon Kongtrul Lodrö Thaye compares such an obstacle with a snake. Whenever one sees a snake, one is frightened and runs away. The reason a snake is metaphorically associated with anger and hatred. Like the snake that one fears, one hides one's emotions, thus is in opposition to the Dharma, and as a result experiences no beneficial results from practice. One may be able to recognize a few small errors one has, but it is more likely that one indifferently shrugs one's shoulders and doesn't worry about them. I have noticed that many beginners have much faith in the Dharma. They practice with enthusiasm, but their emotions increase after a few years because they aren't actually integrating the teachings in their lives. The teachings that are presented for one purpose only, namely to tame and transform one's own mind. Even long-standing practitioners and those who have completed a retreat still cling to self-importance. One needs to tame and train one's own mind. Should a practitioner have tamed his mind, he has accomplished the aim of the teachings that Lord Buddha presented. The best signs for successful practice are diligence, mental calm, and a peaceful disposition. We are taught that the qualities that arise from hearing and contemplating the teachings are mental stability and mindfulness in all situations. The quality that arises from meditating the teachings is freedom from disturbing emotions. Should an individual not accomplish peace and calm, the knowledge of Dharma he or she has won is superficial. We therefore fervently pray to our Lama to bless us so that we are able to tame our own mind. 8. Instability. Not recognizing our own faults, we take the form of a Dharma practitioner. While engaging in non-dharmic pursuits, we are habituated to klishas and non-virtuous activity. Again and again, virtuous intentions arise. Again and again, they are cut off. Lama, think of us, behold us swiftly with compassion. Bless us that we see our own faults. Although one thinks one is a Vajrayana practitioner, one fails to recognize and examine one's own faults and continues having a strong inclination to act badly on account of the force of one's disturbing emotions. One knows about the importance of virtuous activities but forgets. This verse supplements the last one and again shows how easy it is to persist being concerned about others' faults and how hard it is to see one's own mind. Some people appear to be practitioners, but their mind is overwhelmed and controlled by negative habits, which hinder them from actually doing good. Their mind isn't stable. Sometimes bodhicitta arises in their mind, evidence that it is possible to recognize one's own faults and do good, only a phase, though. It isn't sufficient to engage in virtuous actions of body and speech without having developed a benevolent mind. Beneficial verbal and physical activities depend upon a pure motivation. Many people spend hours reciting a liturgical text and mantras, but their intentions aren't genuine and pure. Practice is then in vain. One shouldn't fall into the extreme and think reciting mantras and doing retreats are meaningless as long as one hasn't been able to tame one's mind fully. In that case, one would ignore the benefit that practicing and reciting liturgies brings. One needs both, the formal outer practice and introspection. Dharma is the path on which one cultivates one's mind. Practice actually transforms the mind. The skillful means Lord Buddha offered need to be integrated through recitation and meditation practices that are available to everyone. Therefore, one feels joy that many living beings are able to engage in the outer and inner training, instead of only confusing others. The theme of this section of the prayer is the 8 worldly obstacles and is the sincere prayer to our Lama that he blesses and inspires us to cultivate the pure motivation of loving kindness and compassion. When one studies the teachings, one needs to develop the pure motivation of bodhicitta, a key to a living appreciation of the Buddha Dharma.